Sometimes the person everyone ignores becomes the only one who can save them all. This is not just a story. This is a lesson about silence, rhythm, and hidden strength. The heavy doors of the operating room burst open. Alarms were screaming, monitors flashing red, metal instruments scattered on the floor. A young doctor shouted, "Step aside, you're just a nurse." But the brown-haired woman didn't step back. She didn't panic. She walked calmly to the whiteboard and wrote just 3 short lines. 10 minutes later, that room, once chaos, moved like an orchestra. Every nurse, every resident, every monitor followed a rhythm. And when the chief surgeon finally rushed in, breathless and dripping from the rain, he froze because the entire operating room was being controlled by a nurse. One nurse, with nothing but calmness in her voice. Her name was Nora Ainsley. Nora was only 28. European descent. Brown hair tied low, dark blue scrubs, gray clogs, a wine-colored hair tie always around her wrist. She was beautiful, but not the kind that turns heads in the street. Her beauty was quiet, genuine. She worked at St. Albert Medical Center, a frontline hospital near the coast. Not a rich hospital, not a perfect one, but a busy one, where emergencies could break any routine at any moment. And Nora was always prepared. Every morning she arrived 30 minutes early. She checked every machine, lighting, suction, oxygen backups. She placed 2 fresh trays beside each operating table. She drew diagrams on the whiteboard. Clean path, dirty path, emergency path. To her, these weren't small things. They were life or death. But her colleagues didn't see it that way. In the briefing room, residents sighed, rolling their eyes. There goes Nora again, drawing diagrams. One young surgeon mocked her. "You're too obsessive. This isn't a classroom." Even in the cafeteria, someone joked half seriously, "If the chief is late, maybe the nurse will conduct the orchestra." Everyone laughed, and Nora stayed quiet, looking down at her food. She was dismissed, undermined, told again and again, "Nurses assist, they don't lead." Her careful, methodical work was called excessive. Her triple checks were wasting time. Supervisors told her, "Follow protocol, don't overthink." But Nora knew something they didn't. She knew that in hospitals, protocols fail. And when they fail, details save lives. One day, she noticed a flickering backup light. In OR3, she sent a maintenance note. Nobody read it. Another time, she warned a resident. The clean path might get contaminated today. The wind, the rain, humidity. He brushed her off. Stick to the routine. You worry too much. Again and again. Her voice was silenced. Her warnings ignored, yet she kept preparing. Because she would rather be mocked for being careful than watch lives slip away because no one was ready. In her pocket, Nora always carried a silver pen. On it, 4 words were engraved. Breathe, then decide. It was a gift from a retired head nurse, a reminder that in chaos, calm breath comes first, and Nora lived by that. Then came the storm. Unusual winds, flooded roads, traffic jams everywhere, hospital pagers failing, alerts arriving late. At the same time, a bus full of passengers skidded off a bridge, multiple trauma cases, dozens injured, 5 patients in critical red condition. The chief surgeon was stuck in traffic, miles away. Another surgeon was trapped in an elevator due to a power cut, and inside the OR, staff stood frozen, confused, waiting for orders that never came. A young doctor shouted in frustration, "Don't touch my protocols. Wait for me." But the clock was ticking. Ambulances were already on their way. Lives were bleeding out. Chaos was seconds away. Nora looked at the whiteboard. She closed her eyes, took 4 deep breaths, and then she stepped forward. Her pen touched the board. 3 rules appeared. Silence rule, 10 minutes. Only called names may speak. Clean path, left. Dirty path, right. Airway, bleeding, Brain. ABB, just 3 lines. But those 3 lines would save countless lives. Silence. That was the first miracle. In a place where panic usually takes over, the room suddenly went quiet. No shouting. No confusion. Just eyes, hands, and rhythm. 2 nurses exchanged a quick glance, then nodded. Follow Nora. And in that moment, leadership shifted. Not to a doctor, not to a chief, but to a nurse who everyone once laughed at. The first ambulance arrived. A man, mid-30s, chest caved in from the crash, weak pulse, blood soaking the stretcher. Nora raised her hand, calm, steady. Airway green team, bleeding blue team, brain maintain warmth. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like steel. 2 minutes later, airway secured, blood transfusion running, warming blanket in place. The surgery began smoothly, and everyone in that OR knew something extraordinary was happening. Minute 5. More ambulances, more stretchers. Nora directed flow without missing a beat. Yellow cases to buffer OR1. She had prepared that space earlier. Now it prevented bottlenecks. Minute 7. Clamp pack finished. She opened the backup tray. No shouting, no delay. Minute 9. The main suction clogged. She swapped to backup in 2 seconds flat. Nobody even noticed the switch. That's how smooth it was. Every step, every move, was already inside Nora's mind before it happened. A security guard almost stepped onto the clean path. Nora didn't yell. She didn't waste time. She just lifted her pen and pointed. The guard froze, stepped back, corrected his path. Even he, someone with no medical training, felt the power of her calm command. The anesthesiologist whispered to himself, "She's coordinating," with just eye contact. By now, the chaos had transformed. The operating room was no longer a storm. It was a symphony. Every person knew their place. Every movement flowed into the next. And Nora? She was the conductor. Her hands, her pen, her calm eyes, keeping everyone in rhythm. She folded drapes at precise angles, taped suction tubes with colors to avoid mix-ups, turned trays at 30-degree positions so anyone could reach. Tiny details. That meant everything when seconds decided life or death. At first, some residents resisted. "Who authorized this?" one demanded. Nora didn't argue. She didn't shout back. She simply said, "Doctor chooses the case. I maintain the rhythm." The young resident looked around. The monitors were steady, the pathways clear, supplies ready, the room calm. He swallowed his pride and nodded. "Continue." Then the true miracle unfolded. One red patient stabilized, another patient saved from cardiac arrest. 2 critical lives, pulled back from the edge, and all of it, without the chief, without formal leadership, without chaos. The nurses, the residents, the anesthesiologists, all were moving like one machine, and the heartbeat of that machine was Nora. Up in the observation gallery, medical students watched in awe. They whispered to each other, "How is she doing this?" A veteran nurse beside them replied quietly, "Pure experience. This is what real emergency medicine looks like." It wasn't about shouting. It wasn't about heroics. It was about rhythm, calm, precision, and then, finally, the doors opened. The chief surgeon burst in, rain dripping from his hair, breathless from running through flooded streets. But when he saw the OR, he froze. He had expected chaos. He had expected panic. But what he saw was order, perfection, control. And at the center stood Nora, left hand holding a pen, right hand giving signals, eyes scanning everything like radar. The chief whispered to the head nurse, "Who wrote those lines on the board?" The reply was simple. "Nora." The chief's eyes narrowed. Recognition flickered. He remembered something from the past. He leaned closer and asked, "Is she the one from Falcon 3? The head nurse gave a slow nod. She doesn't talk about it, but yes, she was with the forward surgical team. Suddenly, the truth began to dawn. Nora wasn't just a meticulous nurse. She wasn't just obsessive. She was battle-trained. Years ago, she had worked in field tents, with minimal light, broken machines, and no second chances. She had seen chaos in its rawest form. She had seen colleagues die because silence was broken, and from that battlefield, she carried scars, scars on her wrist, scars in her heart, scars that whispered one lesson again and again. Breathe, then decide. The chief surgeon stood frozen at the door. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. The OR wasn't waiting for him. It wasn't desperate for his orders. It was already running, flawlessly. Nora's pen moved like a conductor's baton. Her eyes scanned everything. One hand gave signals, the other steadied the rhythm, and everyone followed her. Doctors, residents, nurses, even the anesthesiologist who once rolled his eyes. The chief leaned closer to the head nurse and whispered, "How is she doing this?" The answer hit him hard. She was part of Falcon 3, the forward surgical team. The chief inhaled sharply. That explained everything. Field tents, minimal light, no backup, no margin for error. In that world, hesitation killed. Only preparation saved, and Nora had lived it. Back in 2020, she had worked in military evacuation zones, canvas tents for walls, generators that failed without warning, supplies that ran out in minutes. She had learned to create backup paths for every procedure, clean, dirty, emergency, always ready to move, always ready to adapt. She had lost a young doctor in one of those tents, his life cut short, because shouting broke the silence. Confusion delayed the rhythm. The wound could have been closed, but the chaos stole those seconds. That night, Nora engraved 4 words on her pen. Breathe. Then decide, and since then, she never forgot. The chief stepped forward, but instead of taking over, he said softly, "Ainsley, continue coordinating. I'll cover abdominal procedures." Nora didn't argue, didn't hesitate. She just nodded. "Yes, doctor," then turned back to her board. "Blue team suction ready, green team monitor temperature, yellow team open second clean set." Her rhythm never broke. The young resident who had mocked her earlier stood at the back, face flushed red. He watched her calmly control the room he thought he owned. And for the first time, he said nothing. Because now he knew. He had misjudged her. She wasn't obsessive. She wasn't excessive. She was prepared. 30 minutes passed. 2 critical cases survived the danger zone. Stable airways, flowing blood, protected brain function. A nurse whispered under her breath, "Those first 12 minutes saved the entire day." Everyone knew who had made that happen. And finally, the chief said it out loud. He turned to the whole team. "I arrived late today. If this OR still functions, it's because of Ainsley." Silence. But not the emergency silence. This was the silence of respect. The chief wasn't done. "From now on, the silence rule and the ABB system will become St. Albert's standard protocol." He looked directly at Nora. "You will lead the 10-minute OR program for this hospital." The words landed heavy. The team stared in disbelief. The nurse they had mocked. The nurse they had ignored. The nurse they called obsessive. Now, she was leading them all. Nora shook her head gently. "I don't save lives, doctor. I just keep the rhythm. Everyone else does the saving." But her humility didn't erase the truth. Everyone in that room knew what they had witnessed. True leadership. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't chase titles. The kind that breathes first and then decides. After the surgeries, the atmosphere in the OR changed. The young doctor approached her slowly. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I had no idea what you were capable of." Nora's response was calm, almost gentle. "You weren't wrong to want protocols, but when protocols fail, backup plans save lives." For the first time, he didn't argue. He just nodded. Other staff members began asking questions. "How did you know to set up a buffer zone?" "Where did the 10-minute silence rule come from?" Nora answered. "Simply no big speeches, no dramatic stories. Buffer zones prevent bottlenecks. Silence lets everyone focus. Color coding reduces errors under stress." Practical answers. That was her way. Not glory, not spotlight, just practicality. The chief scribbled notes. "These methods need to be taught hospital-wide," he said. But Nora interrupted gently. "They're not mine. They belong to everyone, basic principles, that's all." Her humility made the room even quieter. Because everyone knew, it wasn't just basic principles, it was wisdom. The kind learned in pain, in scars, in silence. The storm outside had passed, but inside the hospital, a different kind of storm had ended too. A storm of doubt. A storm of arrogance. A storm of underestimating the one person who kept rhythm. Nora Ainsley. Word spread like fire. What happened in OR2 that rainy afternoon wasn't just survival, it was transformation. Other departments whispered, "Did you hear about Nora's silence rule? Did you see the color-coded paths?" Nurse Ainsley saved the day. Nurses from different wings came to her locker. "Can you teach us the 10-minute silence? Can you show us how to set up clean and dirty pathways?" And for the first time, Nora wasn't mocked for drawing diagrams. She was asked to teach. Them training sessions began immediately. But Nora refused lectures or big speeches. She insisted on practice. "You don't learn by talking," she said softly. "You learn by doing." So she showed them. How to tape suction tubes, how to angle drapes for one-handed use, how to draw simple arrows that could prevent deadly mistakes. Step by step. Her colleagues began to see what they had missed all along. The young doctor who once told her to step aside became her strongest supporter. He carried copies of her diagrams and told residents, "Follow this. It saves lives." And slowly, the hospital culture began to shift. Preparation replaced panic. Rhythm replaced shouting. Respect replaced arrogance. Soon, signs appeared at every OR entrance. 10-minute OR protocol. Silence first 10 minutes. Clean path left, dirty path right. ABB, airway, bleeding, brain, no logo, no name. Just plain text on white paper. But everyone knew whose hands had written it first. The numbers didn't lie. Setup time decreased by nearly 20%. Contamination. Errors dropped to 0. Airways established faster. Lives saved. Medical students requested rotations at St. Albert. Other hospitals sent observers. Medical journals published articles on the St. Albert protocols. But when reporters asked for interviews, Nora declined. When conferences invited her, she suggested they talk to the chief instead. Her answer was always the same. The techniques aren't mine. They're just teamwork, under pressure. Yet her influence grew stronger. Because real power doesn't come from spotlight. It comes from trust. And every nurse, every doctor in that hospital now trusted her. The chief once said to her in private, "You've started a revolution." But Nora only smiled. "Not a revolution, doctor, just common sense." 6 months later, St. Albert had the lowest surgical error rate in the region. Staff turnover decreased. Patients felt safer. Even the youngest residents learned. Preparation is not obsession, it is survival, and at the center of it all. Nora remained the same. She still came early. She still checked backup systems. She still drew diagrams. She still touched the faded red ribbon tucked under her hair tie, a memory of a battlefield doctor who gave his life. She never changed, but the world around her did. One evening, after a long shift, she opened her locker and found a small folded note. In shaky handwriting it read, "Thank you for keeping rhythm for all of us." No signature, just gratitude. She smiled, tucked it in her pocket, and quietly began preparing clean trays for the next day. Because for Nora, leadership was never about recognition. It was about responsibility. Responsibility to breathe first, and then decide. Her story didn't just change a hospital. It carried a lesson for every workplace. In offices, in classrooms, in factories, in families. Chaos creates chaos, but calmness creates calm. Leadership isn't about being the loudest or the one with the highest title. It's about being the most prepared when it matters most. Sometimes the strongest leaders are the quietest ones, the ones who check backup systems, draw arrows, arrange clean trays, while others laugh until the moment comes when everyone realizes those quiet hands are the reason they survived. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They are the rhythm keepers, the ones who hold the world together when it begins to fall apart.